This week in 40K.
Good morning. Welcome to a special report from This Week in 40K. I'm Colin and he's Billy. Happy Tuesday?
Thursday? Time is a flat circle. I have no idea what days. Honest to God, you could tell me any day of the week. All of my
time
days
is a flat circle, is what you just said.
Yes. Are you not a True Detective fan?
I watch True Detective.
Yeah, it's the famous Matthew McConaughey quote from the first season of True Detective.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
For those that are wondering, Matthew McConaughey released like a 5-hour-long thing that's insane. Anywho, moving on. So this is a special report. We are not normally here on Thursday morning, but we basically got the 10th edition rules yesterday. Not us personally, the internet. It has been leaked. It was very clearly linked by a guy in a car. That was very obvious. We don't know anything else about the person that leaked, and I don't care, but I think GW does. So we have the core rules, and what's interesting about 40K is there's a number of pieces to this incredibly complicated puzzle we're trying to put together. And the puzzle is, what is good? Right? What do I play that's going to go long? That's going to go long? What am I going to play that's going to go well?
Yeah, that's better.
What army can I play that's exciting and that is going to do well at the table? And then there's a lot of nuance that we don't know yet. But we do have the general structure that the game fits in. We know what the box looks like that everything else is inside of. And I think that's extremely significant, and so does Billy. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to walk you through the rules. We have an hour. We're going to walk you through them, and we're going to explain how you play 10th edition. But we're going to focus more on nuanced things that you might have missed. I'm old. I've been playing games my entire life. I'm pretty good at reading rules. Billy's a literal lawyer. If you need Billy to read pages of text and report back exactly what he read, that is in Billy's wheelhouse. So listen to the old guys. Well, one old guy and Billy.
I cracked 40. I'm officially old.
Okay. Listen to the old guys as they talk about 40K rules. I bet you'll learn something. Maybe we'll learn something. Anyways, this is going to be fun. Let's do it. You know what? I'm going to play one of our intros. I don't know which one yet. Let's play...
this one.
Oh man, none of these are quite right, are they?
What's new?
Even better.
What's new?
The rules. Now, before we dive in, Billy, what is your general feeling about not what 10th edition? Just so you guys are clear, we're still super hype on 10th. We don't need to. He doesn't need to answer that question. What do you think of the quality and clarity of the rules, Billy?
It's been on an upward trend for the past 2 editions. The bullet points, examples next to most, like there's a rule and then there's an example that tells you this is the intent of this rule.
And sometimes a picture that treats you like you're an idiot.
But you need that because
I know.
Because they have still yet to do the number one thing I want, which is hire a lawyer or a technical writer to write these. So they're still being written by lay people. So the precision is not perfect. The examples go a huge way towards solving that. The outline is good. The pictures they've shared are good. If you can find an old who has a 2nd edition rulebook, like someone on this show, just put them side by side. They're just different conceptual documents.
Yeah, I agree.
Usually better.
Yeah, I agree. I have wicked bad ADHD for those that haven't listened to the other shows. And it's very hard for me to read for knowledge. It's just, that's a very big challenge for me. It's just really bad. But I am able to read things like 40K rules. I found it extremely easy to read.
Yeah.
Very easy for me to read through and pick up everything they were trying to communicate. I applaud them. I think that it's incredibly clear. So that is great. Jason says, it doesn't feel like an excited ADD person trying to explain things to you. Well, this is going to. So you've got that going for you. Okay, so so first of all, we don't know everything there is to know about making an army, bringing the army to the table, missions, and turn length. We don't actually know all those things. We know things about them. We know structural elements, but this isn't about that. You're at the table. You have your army. You know what the mission is. You know what you're trying to do. All of that's done. Now, how do we play the game? Right, Billy?
Yes. At least that's what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, and it starts off with the command phase. You start with 0 CP, which I don't love.
It does say that.
Somewhere in the text. Everyone is very convinced that you start at 0. There must be a good reason for that.
It's what they did at the Warhammer Fest test tables, was that they started at 0. And that, from my research, is how we've gotten to 0.
I think 0 is right, based on the power and the selection of stratagems. And they made it clear that CP is a lot harder to come from when they talked about Overwatch, which we'll talk about. So we are making an assumption that you start at 0, but it does not say that. And then both players gain 1 a turn. We're used to that. In the command phase, we're still going to do victory points, we presume. That's not in the core rules, so no worry there. There isn't really anything else in the command phase. Obviously, there are command phase actions that you'll use there, and you do that in whatever order you want. Anything else? The command phase is like 2 small paragraphs, so there's nothing really here.
But if we're talking about nuance, there's actually already an important thing in there in what you've said. Things that happen, you get to pick the order that they happen in. A lot of the big leader type models that we've seen, like, for example, Bobby G, can increase the objective control of units in the command phase. So you can just look and be like, oh, I win this game if I'm OC3 as opposed to OC2. Boom. And then you see if you control objectives or not. You do your victory points. So that's
great point. Great point, Billy. Let's talk about Battle Shock. Battle Shock is at the start of your Battle Shock phase, which is right after command. Any unit that is below half strength. Now, they do explain what below half strength means in 2 different places, so good on them. But shockingly, it means half of the unit that you started with. It means less than that. What's that?
Yeah, is there a way for it to be rounded up or rounded down? Like, you start with 10 and you have 5. It's less than half. So it would need to be less than 5 and 4.
Yeah, because it's below half strength. It's not half strength.
Okay.
And then the other thing that it does specify, and a bunch of people are missing this, is individual models. This still counts. They just have to have less than half of their wounds remaining. I don't know if we're going to find out the vehicles are immune to Battle Shock. It doesn't say that. But, there you have it. So you have these, the ads on Instagram are causing me massive problems. Okay, they keep giving me error messages. I reloaded the page. Maybe this will work. I don't have it all memorized, folks. I have to look at some pictures and help me remember. So Battle Shock is you roll 2d6 and you have to get above your leadership. So low leadership is better than high leadership. That's a difference. It doesn't care how many models you've lost because it's the beginning of your turn, not the end. Any model that's below half strength or unit that's below half strength, you take a Battle Shock test on. And if you fail, okay, your objective control becomes 0, so you don't hold objectives. If you fall back, you lose a third of your unit. You lose them on 1s and 2s. And you cannot use stratagems on that unit. But that's it. You don't just arbitrarily lose models while you're standing around. It's just things are just harder. You don't just lose your unit. Right, Billy?
Yeah. Factually accurate description of everything. I mean, the implications of that, I think, are huge just for how armies are constructed and what you have to consider. Like, for so long in 40K, the morale or leadership has led to models dying, and that's how they've penalized you. Now, OC0 is going to be a big and interesting thing because effectively everything used to have OC1, like you at least counted as being on the objective.
Right. But now maybe
not. OC0, you don't exist for that purpose.
Right.
I think we're all going to struggle to figure out what that actually means, and people are going to have a plan of, okay, well, I'll touch this objective and I'll be fine. Oh, I'm not actually touching the objective.
Right. You also can't stand on the actual objective token anymore. Did you see
weird.
That?
Yeah, I did. That's weird.
So when we put down, now you're still going to want to use your, what are those called? Neoprene objective markers, because you're still going to not want to measure if someone's close enough. My plan is to put the neoprene markers down, and if I don't have the inner circle on them, because they don't all, I'm going to take an objective token and put it on the middle, is my plan. Just so everybody knows where I'm coming from on that. But yeah, this is really different, and what I like about it is morale doesn't matter to a bunch of armies in the game right now, and it's crippling to others. Yeah. When you're playing orcs and you just shoot all of their things, they then take morale on all of their things, and they lose like another 10 orcs.
Yeah.
That's not reasonable. So this is a much better way of doing that. I really like that it penalizes falling back, because it means when your gun line gets touched by close combat, there's actual decisions to make rather than just, oh, I'm going to fall back and I'll shoot if I can. Right.
Yeah.
So I love it. Right after that, they have attached units. I don't know why it's there, but you can put any leader that has the leader ability in a unit. How that unit takes damage is exactly what you think. Everybody else dies first. The character can take wounds from some reason. He'll just leave his wounds on him. You'll still kill off the rest of the unit. If the unit or the leader ends up by themselves, they just become that thing. They just act like they never had the other thing with them. Okay? We good there? You're muted, Billy.
Sorry. Squirmy baby, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of squirmy baby noises on this podcast.
Okay.
For people who remember all the way back to like 5th edition Knob Bikers, where you could do all sorts of wound allocation shenanigans, it feels like they had the memories of that in mind here, and are just like, this is how it works. Unless someone tells me there are shenanigans in here, I don't see shenanigans, and that's a very good thing. Like, you
basically, if something other than the leader, if something's taken a wound, that thing takes the next hit, period.
Yep.
And that's the way it is currently, so that's fine. But it's a very clear way to do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, characters attaching to units, though, is a big change from how this game has been played for a very long time. And until we see all of the rules and probably get some games in, I think we're going to be surprised by how that works. Like the fact that the character just has to move with the unit now. I don't know. That's probably going to throw some people. You're not just going to YOLO off with your 20-inch Sunstorm Warlock and grab an objective somewhere.
Right.
Because it's attached to something else. It's attached to
I'm hoping that Farseers ride with a motorcycle gang. That's what I'm hoping. That they'll be like bodyguards on bikes, and the Farseer will be like, these are my homies. Anywho, moving on to the movement phase. Most of what you know about movement is the same. You measure units, you move them. You're going to cheat with vehicles, and the really good players are going to point it out. What I mean by that is that when you're moving a tank, you do have to pivot it and measure that part of its movement. Yeah. You can't just be like, oh, look, I'm over here now. But that's the same thing it's always been. The big takeaway I have, and then when you move, you make a decision. My unit is normal move, advance, or remain stationary. You still can't shoot or advance, shoot or charge when you advance. But there are obviously ways to get around that. But the thing that I noticed here that is my favorite thing in all of the 10th edition rules is that ignoring vehicles and monsters for a moment, everything else can walk through itself, can walk through each other, friendly-wise.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing 100 Gaunts and I have a Gene Stealer unit and I want that Gene Stealer unit to go to the other side of that 100 Gaunts, I don't have to leave gaps. I don't have to explain to my opponent how I'm doing it. I don't have to say, hey, look, I'm going to take a couple inches off because they're weaving through another unit. None of that. I don't have to say, oh, hey, opponent, I forgot to move this first, and now it's in the way of the thing I'm trying to move. Do you mind if I move it now? And everybody says, yeah, that's fine. But the rules did not allow that. Mm-hmm. So This is a thing that is how friends were playing, in my opinion, codified. So the way that it works is monsters and vehicles can't move through each other. Monsters and vehicles can't move through monsters and vehicles. What's that?
Or infantry. They can't move through infantry.
No, it says, it says,
I thought they were exempted from the move through, not from the things that can be moved through.
Specifically what it says is the only exception to this is that when moving monster or vehicle models, such models cannot be moved over friendly monster and vehicle models.
Okay, cool. So they can move, so you can drive a tank through a blob of infantry.
Yes, and which makes perfect sense, right? The infantry would get out of the way rather than dying.
Yes.
The other thing that is significant here, though, is that infantry can go through a tank.
Mm-hmm.
So you can block your army in to stop from charging with Russes or whatever, and then your army could still go past them to get out. I think that's a really neat thing. Honestly, because infantry can move through walls, it makes perfect sense that they could go through your units as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, just to echo, this is a gigantic quality of life improvement as a baseline.
Yep.
Like if it were nothing else, the fact that you don't have to do that social construct stuff with someone new of, yeah, I screwed this up, or my models are really deep in this ruin. There are models behind them that make it hard for my hand to get there. Can I just move these out of order because it's physically challenging for me to do this? You don't ever have to say that again. That's great. On top of all of the weird gameplay shenanigans that you were just talking about. Like this is a big change to how the game is going to play out.
And it's one sentence that people are going to miss.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell your friends about this change.
When I told my friends about it yesterday, one of my most litigious is the wrong word. One of my most detail-oriented, comprehension-based friends was like, "Oh, I missed that." Like it's very subtle. So be aware of that. When you're in the movement phase, you do decide whether your units are normal moving, advancing, or remaining stationary. And an important piece of language about remaining stationary, Billy, is that if you remain stationary, you cannot move again for any reason that turn.
You can't charge.
I don't know about that, but you can't fire. Here, let me find it. There was weird language on remain stationary. Yeah. Oh, for the rest of the phase. Never mind. I'm being silly.
Okay.
My mistake, guys. New rules. Fallback moves are the same as they were. Desperate escape.
Breakout.
Desperate breakout. Or rather, desperate escape tests is when your battle shock is broken and you roll ones or twos on your dice for your ass to die. An interesting point is that means that, and this could be wrong, okay? My understanding is that you could be fighting anything that's not Titanic or has flies. So you could be fighting a Land Raider in combat. And you could get that Land Raider down to half of its wounds, and then it could battle shock and fail. And then try to run away, and there's a 1/3 chance that Land Raider goes away. That's my understanding, Billy.
That's
because it only specifies that Titanic is different.
Okay, that's certainly new. And I'm gonna pull up a vehicle data sheet and see if it has a leadership value.
Oh, good idea. Okay. Flying still exists. Moving over terrain is exactly the way it is now, only they specify, I think this is already the case, but you can move through things that are 2 inches over without worrying about it. Yeah. You have to go up and over.
Land Raiders have leadership, so yes. Okay. Vehicles have leadership.
Okay, you have to go up and over. One interesting point here is people are asking if this means that infantry can't move through walls. I don't know that. However, I will tell you that the picture is infantry moving up and over.
Yeah, right now infantry move through walls because of the rule breachable on the terrain piece. So I would imagine there will be some equivalent rule that lets them do it.
We don't know that though.
I'm sorry if you were about to get to this, but the interesting thing they were talking about was with fly models and how it says they move on the hypotenuse. If they're messing with the z-axis, if they're moving up and down. And with the change to armor penetration, where if you're 6 inches up, you get extra AP when you shoot, it does look like we're getting more z-axis interaction in this edition, which is my one concern. I think the z-axis in GW games have always been Suboptimal.
But I like it for flying. And here's why. I played a game against Necrons, and there was a giant piece of terrain that was 11 inches high in the middle of the table. And my opponent had Doomsday Arcs, and I was playing Tyranids, and he put them on top, and I was done. I couldn't get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he put them on top is that you only measured horizontal distances. So he could just land up there. Yeah. I hate that. He should have to measure true distance to get up there. I think true distance is great. It means if you have tall terrain, it changes the math entirely. Triangles are a thing. There is a picture of a triangle being measured in the book, should you not understand how triangles work. But the key is that the hypotenuse is what you're measuring. So it's not complicated. You're literally just measuring true distance from base to base where you want it to land.
Yeah.
Reinforcements is the same as it is now, as far as I can tell. You put things into reinforcement. You can have 25% of your army in reinforcement. It comes in on turn 2 or 3. It comes in within 6 inches of the board edge.
Is it still?
I didn't notice anything here, Billy. What?
Someone said, and I didn't get a chance to read it closely enough, that it could still come in turns 4 and 5, that you weren't auto-destroyed at turn 3 if you don't come in turn 3.
Oh, that's true. That could be a tournament rule. That is not in the core rules.
Okay. But that is also a big change, because I don't know about you, but I've certainly lost units because I made it to turn 4 and was like, oh, right, those miniatures that are over there on my tray, they were supposed to come in last turn. Crap.
Right. I agree. And it says if it's not set up by the end of the battle, it's destroyed, but it could be a tournament rule. We have not seen the full tournament pack.
That's very true.
All right. Moving on to the fight phase. I don't know why these are out of order, so let's talk about the charge phase. I didn't see anything in the charge phase that is significant other than Overwatch. So before we talk about Overwatch, and then fly units can go through models when they're charging. This is significant because it changes regularly. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, fly units can go through models during charge, which is significant, including enemy models.
I think there's actually a fairly significant change with charging, and it's similar. And it also impacts what we're going to talk about, I assume, in the fight phase. But when you charge, if you can base the targeted unit, you have to base the targeted unit with at least one model, and that in and of itself is a gigantic change from how charging works now. I also think it might say you have to move towards the charged unit with everything, which I read as closer than you were before, so you can still sort of do arcs, like go around the outside of a circle, slowly decreasing the radius to get closer. But there is more language about charging works like someone who has only ever read the book and never seen an advanced player use the charge phase as an extra movement phase. It's closer to just go kill the thing you're charging, rather than I want to charge this so I can get 30 inches of extra movement.
Right. It's actually extremely complicated. And so let's talk about that in just a moment, because people are saying, oh, there's no more close combat shenanigans. I don't like it because it's different than it was before. And I don't like things that are different. That's the vibe that I'm getting. There's actually a bunch of close combat jank, but let's finish talking about charge first. Charging. Mm-hmm. Charging is roughly the same. However, Overwatch, at the end of the charge phase, after everything has charged, you get to... No, actually, I'm sorry. At the end of the movement phase, you get to shoot anything that's within 6 of one... How does it work, Billy? I'm now confused.
One second. So many things going on in my life right now. My understanding was that you got to shoot anything that's with here. Overwatch is
that you can see at the end of the movement phase.
Yeah, move or charge phase. Visible within 24 inches. Shoot as if it's your shooting phase.
Yeah, there you go. Except that you only hit on 6s.
Yes.
Yeah, that's important.
Yes, because otherwise, Jesus Louise, that would be busted.
Right. So what's significant about that is that people can't just move their crap and stand out in the open and be like, well, okay, I'm on an objective. You can't do anything about it till you're shooting phase. It gives a lot of ability for jank. I remember hitting on 6s sucks unless you're a unit that has sustained hits and you explode on 6s and you have full rerolls. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
going to get a sizable amount of hits.
Yeah. So there are situations where you'll just want to shoot a thing, and that's cool and it's different. It also means that if you get charged, like if you're going to get charged like 7 places, your opponent doesn't get to decide you're not going to overwatch this unit because I'm going to charge with this rhino first. It's that.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
different.
also really curious how things like Banshee masks or whirlwinds that shut off Overwatch are going.
Right.
Do they lose that ability? How would you possibly utilize that ability? Is it just you can't overwatch this unit? I'm very curious as to how that's going to play out because it's one of the
that's
stronger
only one of
abilities.
many reasons why I want to see the Howling Banshee datasheet.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So we've charged. We're in combat now. This is very different. First of all, we have not talked about we skipped shooting entirely.
Yeah, but you said it was out of order, so we were just going out of order.
Fine. Shooting is before close combat still.
Yes.
Wounding, shooting, re-rolling, hitting, wounding, saving, damage. That's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, as is close combat in a lot of ways. You got units touching other units, roll their attacks, right? It's all, that's all there, but there's some really important nuances here. First of all, they've changed the way that Fight First works.
Yes.
So in the fight phase, everything that has Fight First goes in the first half, and everything that doesn't goes in the second half. Now, what's important about this is that charge counts as Fight First, but your opponent goes first. So if I charge you, what?
It did say that. I didn't catch that.
It does, yes.
Right.
So if I charge Billy on my turn with 1 unit, and Billy's unit has Fight First, which was a very confusing rule before. Billy, in the previous edition, Billy got to go first, but if I had another unit with Fight First, it could interrupt the charge phase. I don't mean interrupt like 2CP. It could go second. But now they're saying, no, if you have Fight First and someone charges you, you get to pick the first unit that fights.
Sorry, the receiver of the charge or the person whose turn it is gets to do
your
it?
Your opponent gets to decide who fights first if they have a unit that has Fight First.
So you charge me, I get to punch you first.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Don't charge Fight First stuff.
So it's very different. So Fight First is much better as a result.
Yeah.
So we do the charge phase, starting with my opponent, okay? And then after that, the fight phase with Fights first. And then everybody else fights. And most of this language is the same. If you move to touch a thing, you can't then be like, oh, that thing doesn't get to fight me. No, it absolutely does. And there's a lot of words, but what the words basically say is everyone gets to fight before the end of the phase.
Okay.
Let's talk about pile-in and consolidate.
Yes.
So pile-in specifies, in fact, I'm going to use the text because this is very confusing. So when you want to pile in, you can move any model in the unit up to 3 inches. A unit must be able to end within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units and unit coherency. So if you charge and you're there and your other close combat unit kills the thing you're fighting, you do not get to pile in. Unless there's another enemy unit there that you can pile into. So when you pile in, some model in your unit has to touch. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if a model can move closer to the enemy model, and every model, I'm just going to read this. Every model that moves must end closer to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base contact with an enemy if possible. The unit must end in unit coherency and with engagement range of at least 1 enemy unit, or no models can pile in. You do not have to move your units. And this is the thing that they're the models. This is the thing that people are not understanding. I can still charge 30 Hormagaunts into your Rhino and cause massive shenanigans. I can touch 1 model to the Rhino and have the other 19 Hormagaunts spread in a line in front of you, and that whole unit is in close combat. Now, obviously, you can fall back with your Rhino, but I do not have to pile in. If I'm more than 3 inches away, I do not have to move any model. So that's the first thing, how pile-in works. You have to be in coherency. We're expecting all of that.
Right.
You make your melee attacks. It's the same as it is now, so no worries there. And then...
except for which models can fight, unless that's what you're getting to next.
Sorry, yes, go for it.
So which models can fight? From what I can tell, we still don't know. We know engagement range as a concept exists. We have yet to see the definition of it. People are assuming it's the same because of how some other rules are written, the 1 inch around and then the 5 inch cylinder up. But in order to make attacks, you have to be in engagement range, or if you're trying to fight through your own model, you have to be touching the model that you're doing. It's not that half-inch stuff that was the bane of every honest player's existence, because who has half-inch rulers that they can drop in between things? But like knowing that I am half an inch here and I'm just over an inch there, and oh, your arm is making it hard for me to... Like, this is just a much cleaner, simpler way to determine if you're able to fight or not.
Yes, extremely easier. I've played giant units of Gaunts, giant units of Gene Stealers, which don't exist anymore. And it is a barrel of monkeys a lot of the time with these tiny bases and these big arms. And you're trying to measure and you're trying to figure out how many rows deep you can fight. No, none of that.
Nope.
Yeah, none of it at all. That's great. I love that. I think that's wonderful. After you fought, you can make a consolidation move. You can only consolidate if each model in that unit is not in base-to-base contact with an enemy model up to 3 inches. Sorry.
You can consolidate.
You can move any model that is not currently in engagement range. So is not in base-to-base combat. So you cannot move somebody who is already fighting, basically. If everybody's dead, you can consolidate the whole unit, but you only get to consolidate if one model is going to end up in engagement range with another unit, or an exception I'm going to talk about here in a second.
Right.
What that means is, if you wipe the unit, you do not get 3 inches of free movement unless you're going to end up in close combat again. And if you end up in close combat again, that unit you're touching then gets to punch you, and you don't get to punch them because you already punched.
Yeah, that last piece is also a big change. You used to, when you charge, only get to punch things that you declared as a charge target. I didn't see that.
I don't see that anywhere.
Yeah, so if you're in engagement range with things, you can punch it regardless of how you got there.
Right. And then after you kill it, you can only consolidate if you're going to go back into close combat. That's massive. Yeah. Because it means that you can't just rubber band and catapult off of any unit you want.
Yeah.
There is another exception. If your unit is consolidating and there's not a unit within 3 for it to go to, but there is an objective marker. Mm-hmm. It can, but only if there's no unit, not because you want to. Hold on, let me make sure that's true. Yes. If nothing else can be met, so you can't pile in and touch someone, you can pile into the closest objective marker, but only if after doing so, you're in range. Now, what's really significant about this to me is you can consolidate backwards away from the enemy.
Ooh, that's clever.
So you can chart that. There's a lot here. I was actually up at 1:00 last night talking to Tyler Bortel about the close combat phase. There's a lot of jank here that people are just not seeing.
Yes.
So I charge something in the middle of the table, and I leave one model 4 inches from, or 3.5 inches from an objective, or no, 2.5 inches from being in range of an objective. And then I go in and I smash and kill everything in that unit, but there's no enemies within 3 inches of me, so I consolidate backwards onto the objective or behind a wall. Now, the whole unit moving behind the wall would be really hard, but you could have a wall right in front of an objective, and you could charge through the wall, kill the thing on the other side of the wall, and then consolidate back behind the wall. You could do that.
Clever.
Yeah. This is why people don't like it when I read rules to their games. When I play a new board game, I'm always like, I found this corner case, and people are like, no, don't do that.
Right, but the quarter cases, especially around like this, is where player skill came up in 40K. A huge chunk of it was knowing the nuances of how you moved in and around the fight phase. They radically changed those rules. We need to unlearn a lot of things and learn a bunch of new things.
Yep. Okay, so that's the fight phase, folks. Things can only fight once ever. So rather than specifying that on specific rules, they have just said you can only fight once ever.
Because we haven't seen any fight twice stratagems yet, have we?
No, but we actually haven't seen a lot of specific stratagems. I'm going to have to mute for a moment, Billy. You're on your...
Well, if you hear my daughter in the background, that's because she's being a little fussy, and I'm trying. Again, so for me, the biggest takeaway I have from all of this is the simplified but not simple. This is bearing that out. I was really worried that they would just pair rules down, and then we would have to find the gaps that they missed, and that's where there would be sophisticated thinking. I think what they've done is try to make the intent of the rules, the way someone who's never played this game before would look at the board. That's how the rules mostly work. Now, there's still this Tyler Bortel shenanigans of I'm going to consolidate backwards because, you missed something. Sure, 40K is a 360-degree game. You don't just go forward or backward, despite my old man fantasy brain thinking that way a lot of the time. But it's much more, someone's not going to look at it and just say, oh, you're a insert derogatory term here because you understand how to do like the old charge, be within engagement range of 2 units, pile in out of engagement range with 1 to stop heroic intervention shenanigans. Like that's the fact that worked was fun to know, but really a perversion of the intent of the rules. Now, as a lawyer, write the rules you want, but I'm glad that they're getting better at that.
It also seems like, and this could be wrong, I'm just thinking about this right now, so if I miss this in the rules, I'm sorry. But it also seems like you could charge one thing, you could charge a close thing, and if you roll high enough, pile into a thing you didn't think you were going to make.
That was the point that I was trying to make about it. You don't have to have declared it as a charge target because and I would want to go back and reread the charge rules, but I think it's just the one model has to end up in range of the charged target. And then from there, you just have to, there's something about ending closer to the charged, to the unit you picked to charge. So you're gonna have to very carefully figure out how you're going to make this happen. But once you know the preconditions for it, it's the sort of thing you can just look and see and do. I'll see if I can find charging more.
Well, we can come back to that. Let's roll through. We didn't talk about the shooting phase. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that they specify in those rules is that people with the lone operator rule can't be shot unless you're within 12 of them. So that's their way of not having like whoever's a lone operator, Bobby G, not have him just shot off the board on the first turn because there's absolutely no lookout sir rule. The only way lookout sir works is if you have bodyguards with you in the unit because they take the shots first. What's that, Billy?
So I did find the charging. Back to charging. You can't end up in engagement range with a unit that was not declared as the charge. So you would have to use pile-ins to get within engagement range of the unit you didn't declare. And looking at in pile-in, are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to pile into something that we're close to but didn't declare? Move up to closer to any model in base counting. Yeah. So that's what you do. You just end up you charge. Unit A, Unit B near each other, but B is like a 10-inch charge and A is a 7-inch charge. You roll a 12, okay, get in engagement range of A and then move models up towards B out of engagement range and pile in towards them. That will work.
Yep, it will. So that means that it is much easier for your army to be touched. That's what it means.
Yeah. Because it used to be like in 8th, okay, I just declare I'm out of line of sight, so you can't overwatch me. I declare everything within 12 as a charge target, and then I'll just make the successful charges I can make. Well, now it's much closer to that. You're declaring the closest thing and then successfully charging whatever you can successfully charge.
I agree.
That's a big change for melee armies.
Yep. Okay, back to shooting. If someone's a lone operator, you can't shoot them if you're not within 12. There you go. All right, so deployment. We didn't talk about deployment. So universal special rules are great because it gives us vocabulary where we can talk about stuff. There are 4 types of deployment abilities that all exist today. Well, 3 of them exist today. And what's funny is 3 of them are exactly the words that I was using. So deep strike is deep strike.
Yep.
You have to come in 9 inches horizontally away, which is this is something I'm worried about. Because that means that your charge is at 9 inches if you're up top with a with like a flyer.
It's more.
This is a problem they've had before.
Yeah, triangles.
Yeah. So I'm very worried about that. I think that is an English mistake. Because what that means is you could deep strike in 9 inches horizontally away, and then you could charge on the hypotenuse, which, that's longer.
No, yeah, it's longer. It's better for the defender. You zone out more space.
Yeah. I was thinking 9-inch true distance and the 9 inch. I had it backwards. In 8th edition, those 2 things were backwards from each other, and it was a mess. So we're not a mess. Everything's fine. Okay. Yeah. So you have to deep strike 9 inches horizontally away. Obviously, there's some units that may get to go closer, but that's the deep strike rule. Now, it's not deep strike X, which I had wondered. Whereas Scout X is a thing, and some other things are like that as well. Melta X is a thing, and those X's are because different units get different strength of that universal rule. They do not have that explained on Deep Strike, which makes me think that it's incredibly rare to have a different Deep Strike value.
Right. Well, and we've seen demons that their army is, we get to deep strike at 6 inches instead of 9, and it's called out explicitly rather than done the way you suggested as the X in the universal special rule. It just says rather than deep striking at 9, you deep strike at 6.
Right. The second thing is scout moves. After we know who's going to go first, you move your scout move. It's a number of inches into the table you can move. You cannot end within 9 inch horizontally for an enemy model. Here's the thing. There's 2 things about this that I love. The first thing is it specifies in the goddamn language, and I mean this because this is something that pisses me off about 9th edition. It specifies that if you go first, you are moving your pregame things first.
Oh, it says all of them, not one alternating?
Yes.
Okay.
It is all go nice and then all go. Clarity. Yes, because that was actually clear in the tournament pack for 9th, and no one cared. And it was played different constantly, and it was wildly unfair for a Harlequin army, for example, to go first and then do their redeploy second.
Yeah,
that was not that happened to me in a game, and it was not okay. Like, okay, now that I've seen you redeploy, I'm just going to move everything to the line because I know I'm going first. Yeah. No, terrible. So they fixed that. Thank you for fixing that, GW. They also there's a little line in here. There's a cute little line in here, Billy, that's really significant.
Okay.
If a unit, so today there's a unit called Dominions for Sisters. Dominions get to pregame move. If you put Dominions in a Rhino, maybe this is 2 codexes ago for Sisters. Sorry, Sisters players.
I think it's still now.
If you put Dominion dudes in a Rhino, their rule says that the Rhino can then pregame move. This is for everyone now. If you have a unit that scout moves, for example, I don't know, Gene Stealers. If you have a unit that can scout move, you can put that unit in a Rhino, in a truck, in a Land Raider, whatever their transport is, and that transport now gets to pregame move. Land Raiders let you get out and charge after you've moved.
Right.
So you can put something with scout move in a Land Raider. As soon as you know who's going first, the Land Raider can drive full speed out into the table. The Land Raider can then drive again, and then you can get out and charge. That's a first turn charge mechanic, folks. That's what that is. So really, really, really significant. Also exciting to just have a bunch of vehicles that can pregame move, depending on how much scout is, how common scout is.
Yeah. Just because we're getting engagement from the viewers, there's a comment from DK and DB, which is just fun that you guys both went with initials and start with D. Anything about levels, can't go base to base if taking up the whole floor in a ruin. I did not see the wobbly model rule and how that's going to be handled. That's something I actually would love to know the answer to.
They also have a good point where so I don't know the Deep Strike is limited to turn onwards. I also don't know if it's only 2 and 3. I suspect those are tournament rules, like DB is commenting.
Yeah.
And then DK says, is it only dedicated transports, and is a Land Raider a dedicated transport? That is an excellent point.
Well, what does it say in the scout rules? How does it read? Because
dedicated transport.
Okay, well, if I didn't have a baby in my arms with a bottle, I have give me a sec here. All right, you're gonna hear some baby screaming in case to find the answer to this.
You're gonna look up the Land Raider? Okay.
I literally have it up right here. It's called a transport. It has the transport rule.
Okay, well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
So I think that's a thing. We'll find out. You can't scout move with a 9 of an enemy model. So infiltrators, which is the next thing we're talking about, can block that out. Mm-hmm. Infiltrators is exactly what they do today. Put them anywhere you want on the table, 9 inches horizontally away from enemy deployment, and all enemy models. Finally, leader. When you're mustering, you put a leader with a unit. They deploy with the unit. Those are it. That's it. Those are the deployment rules, folks. It doesn't have redeploy, but I'm presuming that's a stratagem that still exists for someone.
Yeah.
Next up, we have stratagems. Command rerolls the same. Counter-offensive is the same. Epic challenge is interesting. Epic challenge is 1 CP. When a character from your army fights, you can make their melee attacks precision, which I believe means 6 is auto wound.
No, it means you can target a attached character to the other unit. You can allocate your characters at hits to.
Oh, it's precision's the sniper rifle rule. Okay.
Yeah, but it's sort of weird in melee because I'm not sure if that means you have to be like your characters have to be in engagement range of each other, or just my character is in engagement range of your unit that has an attached character 8 inches away. Precision. Now I'm punching your character through like 9 different models.
Right. I don't know.
I need to look more closely at those rules.
Yeah, I don't know. Next, by the way, these are the core stratagems that everyone can use. Mm-hmm. Remember, there's going to be very few army-specific stratagems. So these are the ones everyone gets to use. Insane Bravery is the one that was auto-pass morale before. This is different. When you fail a battle shock test, you can then spend 1 CP and the unit passes. So you don't have to reroll. Yeah, I love this because if your big, most important unit fails, you don't have to spend 2 CP preemptively.
Yeah.
You can give it a roll and see.
Yeah.
And I like that.
And it's 1 CP.
Right. Let's see.
And also, couldn't you only Insane Bravery once a game now? And that might have been a mission rule rather than a on the card rule, but my recollection is that was a thing that changed too.
It doesn't say that on the stratagem.
No, but I mean in 9th, you can only Insane Bravery once a game.
Oh, okay, yeah. There is a grenade stratagem. If a unit's within 8 and they're not in engagement range, you roll 6 dice. 4 ups do mortals. That's a weird one. Mm-hmm. Tank shock. Tanks can drive into you and cause mortals. I'm not going to explain what every stratagem does specifically. Rapid ingress is interesting. You can have a unit in reserves, and then on your opponent's, at the end of your opponent's movement phase, basically your opponent's reinforcements phase, you can bring that unit in, which is weird and kind of wonderful, Billy.
Because what that lets you do is then, okay, there's a wall that I'm safe behind. I come down there. Next, and you're probably not charging me or you're Tau, so please do charge me. Next turn, I get to walk out from the other side of that wall. It's a great wall to walk out from outside of. Maybe
8-9 inches if I'm an elf, right, Billy?
Yeah. Screw it. Even 5 inches if I'm a Terminator. That's a 3-inch charge.
What about the Avatar? I don't think it said that the Avatar.
We haven't seen the Avatar.
I don't care. I want a way to get the Avatar into combat.
You can arrive as if it's the reinforcement step in your movement phase. So for things that can't natively deep strike, this is going to be coming in off board edges. Still good, but not coming in anywhere on the board.
But you can decide where to put that based on where your opponent's threats are. And that is such a big deal.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a way to get the avatar to come in off a board.
That is a stratagem that I will abuse people with. That is a Colin stratagem wrapped in a nice little present with a beautiful bow that was handed to me yesterday morning.
There you go.
Fire Overwatch we talked about already. Go to ground. When your infantry unit gets shot for a CP, they can get a 6-up invul. I think it's and have cover.
Yeah.
Smoke screen is a vehicle getting cover, which is weird. And the stealth ability. -1 to be hit. Yeah. Heroic intervention. This is very different.
Yes. Any
unit in your army can heroic intervene 6 inches for 2 CP.
Yeah. But they don't. They can try to heroic because they still have to make the charge roll.
Yes. Also, you can only charge something that's eligible to charge you. So if they got out of a transport and they're 4 inches from you, sorry.
Target 1 unit and would be eligible. No, it's 1 unit of yours, and your unit is the unit that has to be eligible to declare the charge.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's great. 2 CP is a lot, but that's fantastic.
I mean, it's one of the main things that like Harlequins, and one of the reasons I love Space Wolves is, hey, any of my units could heroic 6 inches. Just play around that the whole game, please.
Yep.
And now that it is 2 CP, that's expensive, but the fact that any unit and you can now, it looks like, use your jump packs to jump over things, although I guess that's less important now that you can move through friendly models. But it used to be, you know, if you had a dude in the middle of a big unit and he was based in, he couldn't get out. I also might have frozen. So you're spot on. That's why it's so important.
Yeah. Let's talk about some universal rules. Big guns never tire is that monsters and vehicles can shoot into combat at -1 with the thing that they're fighting, much like we have now.
Mm-hmm.
They can select to shoot other things. I'm not sure if you could shoot out of combat like guard can.
I don't think so, but I don't remember why I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Oh my God. Monsters and vehicles can shoot and be shot at.
Yes, that was the big change.
Even while they are within engagement range of enemy units.
Yes.
Each time a ranged attack is made or against such a unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll.
Right.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah,
that means that then on Billy's turn, his giant monster can charge one of my units, and I cannot fall back and still shoot at him.
Yes, at -1.
But still.
Yeah, cool. You're back to the avatar. The avatar is not charging, a 5-man thing, having something else tri-point it so it can't get out. It's 20 feet tall. You're still shooting the 14 feet of it that are taller than the guardsmen.
Right. We have 6 minutes till your hard stop.
Yep.
Feel no pain still exists, exactly the same. Deadly demise is things blowing up to hurt each other. Assault is the same. Rapid fire is the same. Ignores cover is the same. Twin linked is reroll wounds, which for those that have played 40k a long time is mind numbing because it was reroll hits for a long time. Pistols are the same. Torrent is flamers. And then there's a bunch of different things. Indirect fire has the same penalty. Basically, indirect fire is -1 to hit, and you give them cover.
Yeah. One thing on assault, and this is a rule that has changed a bunch of times, so I might get it wrong. Isn't it now you can shoot if you advance, but it's at -1, and that -1 has gone away? So you just advance and shoot, and there are no penalties.
Yeah, I like that. Makes assault weapons a lot better.
Yeah, it also makes the combat doctrines a lot better.
Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left. Basically, the only thing we haven't covered from what we know is all of the special rules. So I'll just run through them. I'm going to have a hard time with some of these names when I actually play the game. Lethal. So 6 is your crits.
Yep.
On hits. Ones are critical failures, basically. Ones always fail, sixes always succeed. Sixes, if you have lethal hits, sixes auto wound.
Right.
If you have a lance, you get a +1 to strength, to wound on the charge.
Yeah.
So rather than having different charge rules on everything in the game that charges, they can just say lance, which I sure appreciate. Indirect fire, the thing you're shooting at gets cover, and you're -1 to shoot. We'll see. We'll see what that means. I don't actually know if that's any different. Precision means you can target. It says, when targeting an attached unit, the attacking model's player can have the attack allocated to a character model in that unit visible to the bearer.
Yeah, so
that's how characters can get wounds before the rest of their unit.
Yeah, and that sounds like the heroic challenge thing means I'm over here on the right, your character's over there on the left. I challenge you. We're still punching each other.
Right. Blast is different. If you have blast, you add 1 attack for every 5 models in the unit, rounding down. That's neat.
Yeah.
You can't use blast in engagement range. That makes sense.
Yep.
Melta is just how much plus to your damage do you get if you're within half range. Heavy means that if you remain stationary, you get +1 to hit. I love this because before it felt like the heavy weapon infantry were just being harshly penalized.
Yep.
If they moved with their weapon, it was -1.
Yeah, no.
Now it's +1 if they don't move. That's way better.
Yeah. And it avoids that weird thing where a lot of times they would get an extra point of ballistic skill to like undo that penalty preemptively. But then you would have, devastators with ballistic skill too. But, this chapter ignores the heavy penalty. So all of a sudden they're just better. This is, I think, a much cleaner way without spaghetti coding to make it work. You're muted, Colin. Colin, you're still muted. Colin, you're still muted.
Hi. Devastating wounds is a critical wound does mortals, but critical wound is 6 to wound. But it does mortals equal to the damage of the weapon, which is significant. Sustained hits is...
Can I talk really quickly about devastating wounds? Just because I've been playing a lot with Thunderhammers recently. We know Thunderhammers go from 3 damage to 2 damage, but they're devastating wounds 2 damage. So you're actually, instead of 3 damage being the way that you're really guaranteeing you're outputting damage, you're doing it through mortals. And that's just an important thing to flip in your head. Between that and lethal hits, those are the 2 rules that I think are the strongest of all of these, because lethal hits is just Hail of Doom, basically. And we've seen how good that is. And devastating wounds, oh my God, I'm going to pump out an obscene amount of mortals if I have even the smallest amount of rerolls.
2 minutes left. Sustained hits is extra hits you get on 6s. Extra attacks is very obvious. And anti means that you get a plus to your critical wound roll against that target. So if you have an anti keyword, if you have anti take 4+, that means that 4+s do mortals.
4+s are criticals. Okay.
No. 4+s are criticals.
Yes.
Not they don't.
Yeah. So you crit on a 4+ as opposed to a 6. Right. Or if you're anti 2+, you're just critting on a 2.
Yep. And those are the rules, folks. Those are the nuances. Those are the rules. There's lots more in there, but that's it. That's how you play 40K. If you had your data cards in front of you, you could sit down and play right now. And how exciting is that? Very exciting. But Billy has a meeting in a minute, so I'm going to wrap this up.
Please.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us on this special Thursday edition. We wanted to walk through the rules with y'all so you don't have to read them. I hope that you guys enjoyed. We'll be back on Tuesday to keep talking about 10th edition, and also there's some 9th edition tournaments still. Thank you, everyone. He's Billy, and I'm Colin, because someone has to be. And that's it for Thursdays this week in tech, this week in 40K. Bye, everybody.
See you.